Good morning, everyone. We had some technical difficulties again this morning, and we got them all ironed out. And, I just want to mention that today we are doing the chapter on mental and spiritual treatment. And of course, I was frustrated and trying the same thing over and over again. And I know that Robert must have been frustrated too, waiting for me to come on, and then the audio not working, and on and on. Okay, so we went through all that, and the last thing that I thought to do was to treat for it. And isn't that the case sometimes with all of everything that we run into in our life? Sometimes the last thing we think to do after we've tried everything else is to treat for it. And of course, the treatment could have come much earlier, and and everything is in divine right order. So the timing is perfect, no matter how it works. But I just think that that is a good lesson, all in all, that treatment does work, and treatment is our go to method of dealing with anything that might be going on in our lives, from something small to the largest thing in our life. And of course, we can treat for in gratitude as well. So we have all of life can be a prayer and a spiritual mind treatment. So this is chapter 11, and it's mental and spiritual treatment. And I think that for all of us, if you are a student of religious science, or if you are a licensed practitioner, or if you are a minister, or if you are just stepping into this for the first time, this is, I think, one of the most revealing chapters of our book. It is about how we do the work that we do when we do spiritual mind treatment. And some people call this affirmative prayer. Some people, and we call it spiritual mind treatment. And, or it's a process, and that process prepares us in a way that is very interesting. It is a process that we go through in doing spiritual mind treatment, and there are several methods of doing the process. But the main thing is in this first chapter on page 163. And in the first paragraph, it says, treatment. What is it? Effective mental treatment is propelled by a consciousness of love and a realization that the creative spirit is always at work. And sometimes that's not evident to us. Sometimes that the creative spirit is always at work. There's nothing we have to do. Absolutely nothing, because it's already at work. But our part of this is to develop the consciousness to accept that as truth, as the reality. We can fight against it. We can put up shields and guards to uh, block it, right? But we really can't. It's always at work. It's always at work. And in aligning ourselves with that is where we get the effectiveness of spiritual mind treatment. And the practitioner, it goes on to say, the practitioner does not feel that he or she must compel the force to work. It is the nature of the creative power to take form, and it is the nature of human beings to use it. And why would he say that? Why is that our nature? The nature of humanity to use it? Because we are divine emanations of God, and it is within us to use this, to discover it and to use it. And it's important to keep in mind that we are not compelling this force to work. We don't, we're not saying work, it's working. All we are doing is aligning ourselves with it. Oh, now, what is the purpose of treatment? Mental or spiritual treatment should bring into actual manifestation the health and happiness which are humankind's normal and diverse divine heritage. I put in diverse there, I think, because I think of diversity all the time as a divine quality. Such healing includes the emancipation of the mind from every form of bondage through a new concept of God. Oh, that really struck me when I was reading this over again. A new concept of God. And, so I decided I would go and look at some of the concepts of God that have been present in artwork for several centuries, right, of Christianity. So I was looking at mainly Christian images. And of course, we know in Islam, there's no anthropomorphic depictions of God. There's nothing that can, in their concept of God, there's nothing that can represent God. The closest thing that we see uh, as a depiction are these beautiful designs, kind of abstract designs. So, in some ways, that's sort of where uh, the Western Christianity is moving towards, and other spiritual practices, other spiritual um, faiths are moving in that direction as well, of how we actually conceptualize God. I was looking on the internet to see what I could find about children's concepts of God, and what I found was very interesting because even 10 or 15 years ago, what you would see children drawing would be um, sort of what we've has come the cliche of who God is, right? With a beard, floating up in the sky. Sometimes an angry God, a vengeful God. Different things like that. But it was definitely anthropomorphic and very steeped in some of those ideas. That's our concept of God. That this is something that's outside, above us, watching, all of these things. What I was surprised to find was that there is a new concept of God that is uh, coming forward in children's drawings. And generally, we think, well, there's an evolution, right? When children understand something at this level, then it becomes this level. And then, finally we get more abstract and, move toward a non representational idea of God. And we try to represent those qualities of God that we come to understand. Well, in these children's concepts of God, they were pretty amazing. There was one that was a beautiful drawing of a forest, and it was incredible. There was light shining. There were all these green leaves, and it was a crayon drawing, and it was beautiful. And the idea is that God is here. God is in this. And I thought that was such a powerful, powerful image. We can look outside of our homes and see God in the trees that are alive and moving and shimmering in the breeze, in the light that is coming from them, and just all of that life. And that was the image that this child had of God. Now, the anthropomorphic didn't disappear. There was one child who drew a picture of um, uh, a person with gigantic ears, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. And in this child's idea of God was that God listens. God listens to us. I thought, wow, that's really powerful. What a powerful idea that God listens to us. And then there was also a drawing that was speaking to how God has been gendered, as even in a lot of our writings, there's all this gendering that goes on. He, mainly God is gendered as a male, and we, in the Bible, and that's what we see, right? In other places, there's more movement of gender, especially with in Hinduism. There's that movement of God inhabiting many different genders, not just two, but many different genders, and transforming between this whole array of genders, and even not being anthropomorphic either. There's just this whole array. So that's another concept of God. But a lot of times what we have grown up with is a concept that cuts off um, the idea that God is ever present, God is good all the time, right? There has been sort of that conceptualization of God, and we, in becoming aligned with the one mind and consciousness, are charged with creating in our own minds a new concept of God in order to be effective at spiritual mind treatment. So I started thinking about, what is my concept of God? How do I feel about God right now? And as I was looking at these images, an image that I was surprised that spoke to me so strongly was one of the, what we might consider one of those old images of God, and yet it surpassed it. And it was William Blake's the Ancient of Ages, and it depicts somehow William Blake is able to capture this concept of God that is so pure and so fine. And it is a, a man enclosed in a circle. And, I was just reminded, the circle, as that eternal perfection was there. And he's reaching down, and he has an instrument, and I'm not sure if it's an instrument or if it's just light coming from his fingers, but I perceived it as an instrument that was calibrated to create something that is so mathematically attuned that it comes forward in its perfection. So that's what I saw in this image. And it was like I said, an older image, but that was the one that spoke to me so strongly. The idea of perfection, the idea of everything that is created by the Ancient of the Ages is perfect. it's calibrated. It is unfolding exactly as the Ancient of Ages conceived it. It is perfection. So, with this new concept, this concept that spoke to me so strongly, and it must be inside of me, right? If that's what came through, that is a new concept of God, devoid of any separation, only this continual act of creation in continuing forward and reaching back to the very beginning of time. So, as practitioners of religious science, we look at this, we look at our own concepts of God, we examine it. And if there's anything that is left over, right, of any previous ideas that we had of God, fearful ideas, God's going to punish me, those kinds of things, and we know that we do not have a punishing God. God is never interested in punishing us for any reason. There's things that we may set in motion, and there are consequences to it, but it is never meant as a punishment to us. And we can always create a new thought and move forward from that thought into that perfection from which we are derived. Now, this healing power, he goes on to say, Ernest Holmes does, this healing power of consciousness is one of the unity of all life and the spiritual nature of all being. So, human life is universal and it is eternal. So, this is just one aspect that we are experiencing right now as we move through this life as human beings. It's one aspect of this eternality of life. What a wonderful, I just feel good thinking about that. It's a great way to start the morning, just to know that we are a part of this eternal flow of life. We are part of it, and we are that perfection that God has set forward for us. And, I think that we can pull from this as well is that we have that connection with all of life, that we're not separate from it. We're not separate from God. We're not separate from anything that is occurring here on this, in this materiality that we know, as existence. It's all a whole. It's wholeness. And without any one of us, that wholeness cannot be. So it's both individual, it's the entirety of creation, and it continues. So, that when I say it cannot be without every one of us, we know that we go through this life cycle and we see it in everything. Sometimes in the fall, I'll watch the leaves come down, and I know that it is just how it is, right? Those leaves fall and they come down and they're beautiful. And sometimes, I see them raining down and I just see the beauty of the colors. I see the beauty of the shapes. And, I fall in love with it. And I know that, yes, they've served their purpose in their time. And there will be regrowth and renewal in the spring. Other times I get a little bit melancholy, and I think, oh, this is passing, and it feels melancholy. And of course, it's true with us too. We go through this life. We we come to the end of it, and we, like the leaves, we fall. And yet, there is nothing that is lost of us. We are still an intrinsic part of the whole. And there is rebirth in the material, but there's also that continuation of us in the whole. So I believe that is exactly what Ernest Holmes is speaking to right now. When we are able to arrive at this place where we know that we are absolutely a part of the whole, that God is eternal, God is perfection, God is love, God is all of these qualities that we ascribe to Him as goodness. That is God. So when we align our consciousness with that, we form a new concept of God that allows us to do our work. And in the next paragraph, he says, treatment should incorporate a conscious recognition that health has always been ours, abundance has always been ours, happiness and peace have always been ours. They are ours now, for they are the very essence and truth of our being. And he does mention evil here, which is unusual in our writings in Science of Mind. And I think that when we think of evil, there, and my idea of this is that when we are out of sync with God, when we are not aligned with God, then we are, as Ernest Holmes says, all there is of evil, or whatever name or kind, is an inversion of eternal good. So it's a kind of a wrongheadedness, and aberration of thought that is evil. And we are always moving back toward that perfection, because there are consequences to inverting the good. There are definitely consequences. There are consequences that are personal, and there are consequences that are heaped upon our family, on our friends, on even people we don't know. So, as individuals, it's our work to move toward God at every moment. And God's everywhere, God's within. So to actually embody that, right? To embody that goodness, that abundance, that happiness and peace. And certainly we know that right now we are called to embody those qualities ever more than ever before, I believe. We live in a world of plenty. We live in a world of abundance. We live in places that are incredibly peaceful. And if there can be peace in one place, there can be peace everywhere. And we have to believe that and know that in every cell of our body in order to manifest it. So when we are thinking about those things that we think we lack, take a breath and concentrate on those things that we have, that we are already. And, as scripture says, all else will be added unto us. Think on the good, think on God, and all things will be added unto you. That's the idea here. That perfection is present, that goodness is present. It is always with us. And all we have to do is open our eyes and live it. And, it sometimes I think that people think that that we don't look at reality. And, I believe that, yes, we do look at reality and we look at the ultimate reality, but we also look at what conditions may be surrounding us, what the circumstances might be. We don't deny those circumstances. We never deny them. That's an experience that maybe we're going through or someone else is going through, but we never deny it. But what we do is we turn toward God. We turn toward God. We turn inward. We turn with our eyes raised to God, right? That's what we do. And that's what I believe he means when he says, in treatment, we turn entirely away from the condition. Because as long as we look at it, we cannot overcome it. By thinking upon a condition, we tend to animate it with the life of our thoughts, and thereby it is perpetuated and magnified. I think any of us can think about something that we've continually thought about, and all that has occurred is that we've made it worse, right? And sometimes, we can think about something that will absolutely never occur, never occur. Mark Twain said that most of the things he worried about were things that never happened, right? And that's kind of something that tends to happen with us, that we will worry about something that has never, is not happening. So that's looking at a condition that doesn't even exist, right? I heard a story about this man who was given a ticket to this, beautiful, this amazing world class orchestra was performing, and he was given a ticket in the best seat of the house, just absolutely the best seat in the house. And he was given this ticket, and he was so excited, and he was, oh, he was really, really just on top of the world. And he drove to the symphony, and he went there, and the person who was taking him to his seat and looked at his ticket and saw, oh my goodness, this man has the best seat in the house. So he was treating him really well and just making him feel welcome and well served, by being escorted to his seat. And he sat down, and the music began to play, and it was just incredible. It was amazing, and he was in the best seat of the house, and he could hear everything perfectly. And then all at once, he thought, I locked my keys in the car. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to get home? What is going to happen to me? How am I going to solve this? And he was in this place of perfection, right? Right then, right? He was in the place of perfection. And yet, physically, he was in that place. Mentally, he was somewhere else, and he couldn't enjoy this great thing that he had been given. So I think that's something that we do, right? We turn toward a condition, like he turned toward this condition and magnified it. And, it just completely overtook his entire life. And I think that we can look at anything that happens in our life. We may have a condition in our life, and yet we have this fullness of life that we ignore. We have this fullness of God that we ignore. So when we turn away from the condition and turn toward God, everything changes. Everything can change in just a second. So treatment, he goes on to say, is not willing things to happen. It is to provide within ourselves an avenue through which they may happen. Treatment opens up the avenues of thought, expands the consciousness, and lets reality through. Reality, ultimate reality. That's what I'm talking about. Ultimate reality, that perfection, that idea in the mind of God. That's the absolute reality, the ultimate reality. It clarifies the mentality, removes the obstruction of thought, and lets in the light. It removes all doubt and fear in the realization of the presence of spirit and is necessary while we are confronted by obstructions or obstacles. We already live in a perfect universe, he says. And, I'm just echoing that. We know it. We live in this perfect universe. And, I'll have to say, one of the children's drawings was of the universe. It was amazing. It was just this beautiful, beautiful drawing with other worlds that were incredible. All of these colors, and you could almost hear life breathing through this. I'm going to call it a landscape, but I guess it's a universe-scape. And you could just feel everything, right, in that. So that is the ultimate reality. All of this life, all of this perfection, all of this beauty. So, this is a chapter that we can study over and over again. And in my book, I think that it's going to end up being the one that is completely underlined. And I think that it's probably a good thing to even memorize this chapter because it contains so much. And I think the essence of this chapter is that we always keep our mind in treatment on perfect God, perfect human, perfect being. That we always keep our mind there when we're treating. That's where we are. That's where things happen. In that perfection, right? When we put our minds there, things align with that. It's almost like a magnet, right? A magnet drawing everything toward it. You probably played with magnets when you were little and just kind of move the magnet and watch those things just kind of go and align and just line up very perfectly and come toward the magnet. That's sort of that's an analogy for what's happening when we do a treatment with our mind in that place of perfection. And we always know that as we do our treatments, that we are always treating for ourselves. The practitioner treats themselves to come to that place of perfection. We may speak the name of the person, as Ernest Holmes says. We may be calling that forward, right, with our word, the consciousness of that perfection of all of life. And we are treating ourselves so that we know it. in every part of our being. That is when we are effective. That is when those miracles or seeming miracles occur. And we know that those miracles are just what life is. All of life is a miracle. All of life is holy. All of life is sacred. So, treating ourselves, coming to that new conception of God, knowing that all is well, that we are one with the one, is the essence of this entire chapter. And I'm knowing that as we go forward in this week, that as we do our treatments, we keep this in mind. We know that it is not us doing the healing, right? We are those conduits of spirit. We are aligning with consciousness, the one mind, and we are treating effectively for everyone. And I just want to say, that I know that treatment works. I know that things are always in divine right order uh, in this ultimate reality. And as we align with it, we live a life of fullness and overflowing of blessings. And we are those beneficial presents in life. So, everyone, I love you. I know that we got a late start and I'm going over a little bit. But I know that as we do our treatments this week, that we are grounded in a new concept of God, that we see God, that we know that we are one with God. And have a wonderful week.